All right, good afternoon, everyone. This is the Transportation and Parking Commission meeting for Tuesday, December 17th. My name is Donna Lascalia. I'm the Director of Public Works, and I'm the Chair of the Commission. Beth, if you are ready, if you could please call the roll.
DPW Director Donna Lascalia.
Here.
Chief of Police John Cartledge.
Here.
Director of Planning and Sustainability Carolyn Mish.
Here.
Parking Enforcement Administrator Nancy Forrestal.
Here.
Counselor Alex Jarrett.
Here.
Counselor Deborah Clemmer.
Here.
Citizen TPC member Devin Bruce. Was that a here?
Yes, Devon's
Thank
here.
you. Thank you, Devin. Citizen TPC member Diana Foster. Foskett, excuse me.
Close enough.
And Citizen TPC member Jamie Alvaro Fisher.
Here.
Okay, everybody's here.
Okay, thank you, Beth. And this meeting is being audio and video recorded. So next up is public comment. It's your opportunity to address the commission on any matter you wish. I would ask that if you are here to speak about the high school, that we just hold until we get to that item on the agenda. It's actually the only matter before on the agenda today. So just to make for a more orderly meeting, I just ask that you hold your comments until that time. But if you're here to speak about something that is not related to the high school project, which we're going to discuss, now is your opportunity. So please raise your virtual hand, or I see an actual hand, Hillary and Jim. So, okay, we're going to unmute you. I just need your name and city of town of residence for the record, and ask that you limit your comments to 2 minutes for us. So Hillary, I'm going to unmute you. So go ahead.
Yeah, hi, thank you. Hillary Gardner. Sorry, my rename and my raise hand functions are not working, so I apologize. Yeah, hi, I'm Hillary Gardner. I live on Meadow Street in Florence, and I am interested, I'm seeking information on the bus currently running on Meadow Street. Seems to have been made a permanent change. I'm not sure. I attempted to contact PVTA and DPW about whether the bus route is now permanently running down Meadow. We have, no dedicated bike lane, school buses, walkers, etc. So just trying to get some information on that, and I really appreciate the traffic light signs at Florence Fields, the flashing lights, and it would be great to have those at Meadow and Corticelli as well. It's very difficult to cross Meadow, but the speed humps and flashing lights have helped a lot, and trying to figure out how to get updates on bus route. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for those comments. Okay, Jim Driscoll, I saw your actual hand up too. So I'm going to unmute you. Go ahead, Jim.
Thank you. I'm a resident in Northampton on Crescent Street. And many of us on the high number end of the street are curious about having it resurfaced. There are parts of it that are truly abominable. We've talked with Councilor Clemmer a little bit about this, but basically, I wanted to start by seeing if you guys could direct me to how we can get some more information and maybe even a meeting with folks living on the street. We've been told that we were in line to have the street repaved years back. Nothing happened. The mayor commented to one of our neighbors that we should be careful what we're asking for. So basically, I'm here just to ask, how do we get more information, and can we do this more cooperatively?
Okay, thank you. I have just tried to put in the comments in the chat DPW's main email address. I don't know if everyone can see that. I hope that you can. And what I would ask both Hillary and Jim to do is to send us your comment in writing if you could, and we will respond to your question. I can't respond now, but I will respond to your question via email. So can you just, Jim, can you just confirm you can see that email address in the chat? Is it there?
I can and have previously been in touch with it.
Okay, great. If you could send me another email, I will personally respond to you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have any public comment for us? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to approval of the minutes from the prior meeting, which was October 15th, 2024. May I have a motion for a positive recommendation on that?
I'll
Debon
move to approve.
moves. Debon seconds Alex's move.
Is there any conversation about approving the minutes? Okay, hearing none, roll call, please.
Donna,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Carolyn, Nancy,
Yes.
Alex,
Yes.
Deborah,
Yes.
Debon,
Yes.
Diana,
Yes.
and Jamie.
Yes.
It's unanimous with 9.
Okay, thank you, Beth. Next is reports from departments and subcommittees. I just have a couple of things from DPW. So our mill and overlay project is complete for 2024. We had a great experience with Northeast Paving. They were our contractor. I think overall they did a really great job. Smith College pedestrian improvements, the RRFBs at various crosswalks on the Route 9 corridor and at West Street have been installed. Cook Avenue at Hatfield Street, always stop. In order for the temporary always stop control, received a positive recommendation from this commission in June 2024. And an ordinance for the permanent installation of the always stop control has gone through 2 readings at City Council and has been approved. So that stop sign is now permanent and has made a really huge difference, I think, in that corridor. And I thank the commission for their work on that important initiative. Northampton Bikeway resurfacing. The bike path was closed on October 28th. We reopened it November 27th, and it was paved. I think I talked a little bit at this commission about everything sort of how to go perfectly for us to pull this project off. And we were able to do it. The weather cooperated. Again, great contractor, and we're very pleased at how it looks. We do have a lot of punch list items to be addressed in the spring. We have actually more than punch lists, so it's going to be all the concrete curb ramps and loam and seed. There are some areas that are just unfinished, and we've lost the weather at this point. So the contractor will be remobilized in the spring, but overall, a very successful project. And then Mass DOT projects, Damon Road reconstruction has actually been completed, and the contractor has demobilized. I-91 bridges over Route 5, the railroad, and Hockenham Road. That project is substantially complete. And the King Street corridor traffic signal pole painting. So many of you may have noticed that those new mast arms on King Street that were installed as part of the Mass DOT project, the paint is actually peeling off of them in sheets. That is a warranty item. And the contractor is responsible for fixing that. So either sandblasting it in place or actually replacing the mast arms. So we're sort of going back and forth on resolution on this, but no work will be done on that until the spring of 2025. So those are DPW updates. Does anyone else have any updates for the commission? Carolyn, go ahead.
You all probably already noticed this, but we were finally able to have a contractor install the covered bike shelter in Pulaski Park. Not quite done. We don't have the bike racks. There was a disconnect. We couldn't. I think Donna's been having this trouble as well. We can't seem to get contractors to respond to us, so even suppliers. And finally, the supplier who was going to supply us with the bike racks just notified us last week that, oh yeah, sure, we can deliver the bike racks that will go under the covered storage. So we will get to install those as soon as we can, but this project is a long time coming. It took a long lots of starts and stops to try to get someone to install it. So it's there. So we're excited about that. Also, on Saturday, MassDOT advertised the shared use path construction for the Rocky Hill Greenway. So that means that the contractor should be ready and in place for the start of the next construction season to start that project. That's it. Thanks.
Thanks, Carolyn. Any other commission members have any updates for us? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to matters before the commission. So there will be a discussion of the North Elm Street Corridor Improvements Project. That's actually the only thing on the agenda today. So what I would like to do is run through the rendering that our engineering firm Fuss & O'Neill has created. It'll take about 10 or 15 minutes for me to run through this, just kind of talk about the proposed improvements. And then at that point, I will open it up for comments from the public and the commission, comments and questions. And what we intend to do is collect all of the questions and comments, and then we will create a document, almost like a FAQ document, which we will post on our website, that will respond to, any concerns or questions that are raised here today. Some I may be able to speak to, some I may not be able to speak to. Again, this rendering was created by Fuss & O'Neill, our engineering firm, and we've had quite a bit of collaboration over the last year with them on this. We're looking forward to a public discussion on this to get input from whoever wishes to provide it. So I think what I'll do is I'll start by saying that the budget for this project is sitting at about $3 million right now. This is a very busy corridor, and we're doing the best we can to manage traffic, not create bottlenecks that are going to encourage motorists to try to avoid the corridor and potentially go on to side streets which are not equipped to handle that volume of traffic. And we also have to be mindful that these are utility corridors with water, sewer, and drain utilities. So we want to think about, the budgets that we have to work with and be very careful to make sure that we don't end up with a project that has sort of exponential cost that actually becomes unaffordable and that we can't do. So those are sort of the constraints that we're working in. So $3 million is the number where we are right now. That certainly doesn't mean that doesn't have the potential to move given the construction climate that we're in. So there's a rendering up on the screen in front of you. I'll just talk a little bit about the history on this. We've had multiple traffic calming requests. We've had a cyclist who was struck and killed at the intersection of Woodlawn Avenue and Elm Street on October 8th, 2021. And we've had multiple near miss incidents as well as actual incidents that have resulted in injuries to folks trying to cross the street. So given all of these tragedies, we have engaged Fuss & O'Neill, the city's traffic engineering firm, to design what you see in front of you. We have also made some sort of intermediate steps. We've done what we can to take intermediate steps to improve safety in the area. At the November 2021 TPC meeting, we talked about temporarily prohibiting parking in 5 parking spaces by Childs Park to allow for continuous bike lanes by the park. And we've had concrete barriers installed since that time, and City Council has since voted a permanent ban on parking in that area. We also discussed and implemented a U-turn prohibition at the intersection of North Elm and Elm Street to reduce conflicts with pedestrian, bicyclists, and other vehicles. So we have had Fuss & O'Neill on board since February 2022. And we have also at this commission discussed the use of signals at Route 9 and Elm Street and Route 9 and Woodlawn. So that's really the primary improvement in this project is 2 signalized intersections. At this commission, we did talk about the use of roundabouts versus the use of signals. And we had Fuss and O'Neill study if we could install roundabouts here on Route 9, and we cannot. We simply do not have the space, and we are hemmed in by parkland on both sides. Parkland is protected by Article 97 within the state, and it is not feasible for us to work within the confines of the road that we have and not get into the park and install a roundabout. So a roundabout is simply not feasible in this corridor. It is incumbent upon us to look to see if a roundabout is feasible anytime we're talking about making intersection improvements. So for those who may not have been part of that conversation, I just want to stress that that option has been exhausted and it is not a feasible one. So a major aspect of this project is that we want to focus on improving safe travel for all users of this corridor, bicyclists, pedestrians, and we want to be extremely mindful that there's a lot of traffic through here in a very concentrated time period in the morning and in the afternoons. And we need to be mindful that we're sort of flooding the area. And then the rest of the time it sort of reverts to its normal usage. So that's kind of the backdrop under which we're designing this project. So let's move to the rendering, and I will just move through the important pieces of this. So I'm going to move from the left side of the page to the right side of the page, and I'm going to start on Milton Street. So at the intersection of Milton Street and Ormond Drive, there is a proposed all-way stop sign. One of the approaches to that intersection is actually coming out of the high school parking lot. So this would require an ordinance change that would need to be approved by City Council. The warrants for this are engineering judgment and sight lines. There's very poor sight lines, sort of making turning movements in and out of Ormond. And again, this is an area that's being flooded with a lot of traffic in a very short time period. Next is the Milton Street corridor. So we will be reconstructing the sidewalk on the east side between the lower school parking lot all the way out to Riverside Drive. I do want to add that as part of this project, we do not plan to pave Milton Street, but we will be reconstructing the sidewalk. At Milton Street's intersection with Riverside Drive, we intend to realign Milton Street to intersect Riverside Drive at a right angle. And we're trying to square that off because for anyone who has sort of moved through that intersection now, you're likely aware that it is very confusing. We looked very closely at putting a roundabout here. I was actually a big proponent of putting a roundabout here. We cannot make the grades work. A roundabout just will not fit. The topography of the area will not accept a roundabout. So again, any intersection we look for realignment on, we have to look and see, can we get a roundabout in here? And this would have been a good place for it, but it is not feasible. So moving on out to Elm Street. So we intend to resurface the road from Riverside Drive all the way up to Route 9 on North Elm Street. We are proposing a 5-foot wide concrete sidewalk on the south side of the street from Riverside Drive all the way up to the existing school driveway and bus loop, which I will talk about in a moment. The north side is not able to have a sidewalk due to steep slopes. So I will be back to this commission to discuss a design exception because the Complete Streets Ordinance does require in this area sidewalks on both sides of the street, but it is simply not feasible to install a sidewalk on the other side of the street. We are proposing a new driveway entrance west of the current school driveway and bus loop for access to the parking lot. We intend to separate the bus loop for use by those who need ADA parking, and you can see that there are new proposed ADA parking spaces. And we also recommend the usage of this bus loop now just for the shorter buses, maintenance staff, whatever deliveries are being received by the school, and those who need ADA accessible parking. So this would be a restricted entrance just for those uses, and the parking lot would still have 2 entrances and exits, but one of them would be new. We're also proposing 5-foot bike lanes on both sides of the street, which is actually another reason why a sidewalk is not feasible on that side of the street. We do not physically have enough space to get sidewalks on both sides of the street, 5-foot bike lanes. There just simply is not enough space. So we do intend to install 5-foot bike lanes on both sides. On the approach to Route 9 at the new traffic signal, there will be 1 lane for turning left or right. And in existing conditions, what's happening right now is drivers are pulling up to the stop bar side by side to make the turns. So moving on to the bus loop, this is the access road in front of the school. We intend to reestablish this bus loop. This bus loop was in service for many years and was closed off some time ago due to a number of conflicts in front of the school, so vehicle conflicts. This lane will be strictly bus only, and it will be one way out to Route 9 from Elm Street. We're proposing a raised crosswalk at the beginning of the loop to deter drivers from attempting to use the loop as a shortcut. We will have to discuss with school staff sort of operationally if it's feasible to install a gate to discourage use by members of the public. This is strictly a bus loop and for emergency vehicles only. So what we will have to look at operationally is can school staff sort of control and maintain a gate? Will that work for emergency services? What would the cost of such a gate be, and sort of logistically, how would that work? So those are parts of the project that continue to be in development. We did look at having traffic flow in the bus loop come the opposite direction than the direction we are proposing, but what that would have required was students getting on the bus on the wrong side of the road. So what we want to do is we want to control the traffic coming into and out of the school. We want to keep pedestrians on the sidewalks, in the crosswalks, in a controlled environment so that cars can see them. We don't want pedestrian traffic kind of on the wrong side of the buses or on the park side of the buses, then having to cross the roadway in front of the buses. That establishes sort of an unsafe condition. We're proposing a 10-foot wide concrete sidewalk on the park side of the bus loop, and we are proposing a fence to deter students or anyone from crossing mid-block through that park. We want to see pedestrians on the crosswalks, which are designated for pedestrian usage. That's the safest place for someone to cross the street, is in a crosswalk. So out on Route 9, we intend to resurface the road between 50 North Elm Street and 330 North Elm Street. And as I mentioned, signalize intersections at Elm Street and North Elm Street and Woodline Avenue are proposed. So this is going to include pedestrian signals, and it is also going to include exclusive pedestrian phasing. So we talked a little bit about, can we actually have an exclusive pedestrian phase where we stop traffic in every direction to allow for people to cross? Sometimes what you see in large cities, what you see on King Street, what you see on intersections where we have traffic queuing or a large amount of traffic, you have concurrent pedestrian phasing where cars are moving at the same time pedestrians are moving. In this case, our engineering firm feels confident that we can actually have exclusive pedestrian phasing here where everybody stops and students are able to cross the street, and they feel that they can achieve that without undesirable queuing. That continues to be in development and will be worked out as our engineering plans are finalized, but that is obviously good news if we are able to achieve that. The existing median islands that are in the middle of the road will be removed as part of this project. We are proposing 5-foot wide concrete sidewalks on both sides of the road between 32 North Elm and 345 Elm. And we are also proposing 5-foot wide buffered bike lanes along Route 9 within the project extents. So we are intending to paint a 3-foot buffer between the bike lane and the travel lane. And we propose to remove parking on the school side, so the inbound side of Route 9, to make room for this change. So right now we do not have continuous bike lanes because there is parking interrupting the bike lane. So that will require a vote of City Council to eliminate parking on the inbound side of Route 9. We did look at making these bike lanes separated. We actually trialed a type of allegedly indestructible poly post that could be installed in the street and removed for de-icing operations. And we actually installed it behind the DPW and just sort of simulated traffic conditions and ran into it with our equipment and ran a bicycle into it and just tried to sort of see what this would look like. The performance of the material was not good. It was actually damaged and became more of a liability than not having anything in the street. It's a maintenance problem and not something, in our opinion, that would enhance safety. So we are not proposing any separation on these bike lanes. And as we've talked about at this commission and at various meetings over the years, it's very difficult in the Northeast to have separated bike lanes because they need to be de-iced. So if we were in a more temperate climate, de-icing is not a factor. But we have to run our de-icing operation 6 months out of the year here. So separating bike lanes is a very, very challenging endeavor. We are also going to need to think about the existing eastbound bus stops and a relocation of that about 100 feet south of its current location. The westbound or outbound bus stop will remain in the same location. Both have proposed both bus shelters. And on Woodlawn Avenue, on the approach to Route 9, there will be one lane for turning left or right. Currently, there is an ordinance prohibiting a left turn, but with the installation of the proposed traffic signal, left turns will be allowed. So that concludes my comments on this rendering. It kind of hits the high points. So again, we're working within our $3 million budget, trying to make the most positive changes that we can, sort of within those constraints. And I'm looking forward to hearing comments from any or all of you around what you see on the screen. I'll also add that there's a lot of engineering details to work out here. There's a lot of budget details to work out here. Traffic signals also have a really significant lead time. So meaning if we were to execute a contract today, it can take 5-6 months to actually get the materials we need to do the job. So in terms of managing expectations around timing of this, we're going to have to be very careful when we bid this and when it's actually being constructed. It is not going to be possible to execute a project of this size and scope while school is out of session. School just isn't out of session long enough, and we can't guarantee supply chains enough for that. So we are going to have to sort of coexist with construction and school in session, which will require coordination with school administrators and transportation. But in terms of timing, we sort of need to get through this comments. We need to get through, again, our budget and whatever appropriation is needed. And then we can think about bidding this and what our timing would be. So that concludes my comments on this, and I'm happy to take, let me first take any comments from commissioners, if there are any, and then I will open this up for public comment. Okay, Diana, go ahead.
I had two kind of areas of comment since we are very frequent visitors to this area with two kids in the high school. The first is that the flow of parent pickup traffic, I'm not sure how they're anticipating that that's going to go, but I'm concerned with, and this might be just a matter of striping or maybe making some of the Milton and Elm parking lot one way or not one way, but I know that at pickup and drop off, Elm Street packs up with a solid line of cars. And it looks like we're eliminating a lot of parking. And so if that parking lot's going to be more full, and I'm trying to anticipate how many people are going to be kind of coming in and going out. Right now, there's already, and one suggestion I would have is the Milton Street entrance to the parking lot. It's not wide enough. The way that they have the flow set up now is that traffic exiting the parking lot has to go south in that traffic lane inside the parking lot that runs parallel with Milton. And then the cars have to make a sharp right to get to the exit, and then a sharp right again on Milton to get out. And there's not room for cars to do that at the same time as cars coming into the parking lot on Milton. And so routinely, if you stand there and watch, cars are coming up and driving over the curb, or there are conflicts, and then 5 cars have to all back up, and everyone has to get the message to back up so that the incoming traffic can clear off Milton, so that those cars can kind of swing around that corner, because making that sharp right and then another sharp right, they just can't do it. So just kind of how traffic is supposed to work when all of those parents are coming and dropping off is something that I'm concerned about. And if there was a way even to include in this project widening that driveway coming into the parking lot from Milton Street, because there really are a lot of conflicts and people having to back up to get out. So that was one concern. The other concern that I had is it looks like we've eliminated all of the visitor parking, the quick parking. And during the day, I know parents, dropping stuff off for kids, paraprofessionals will sometimes come in for an hour and leave. And we had a lot of public comment at a previous meeting about those parking spots that we're eliminating that used to be on North Elm Street. And during the school day, the only entrance that's open is very far from that parking lot. And I'm concerned that if we don't at least put some kind of convenience parking, maybe in the old bus loop where there's currently parking, I don't see it striped on this diagram. But I think if we don't have more convenient parking for just during the day quick visits, that people are going to be in that bus loop all day long where they're not supposed to be, because there's no other kind of quick parking, because that's kind of a hike just to get into the only door that's open during the school day. So that's all. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for those comments, Diana, and that's actually really helpful. I have had conversation with the school superintendent and transportation supervisor about circulation in the parking lot. That's something we continue to look at, and we're actually contemplating a drop-off lane within the parking lot, because we are eliminating the potential for queuing on Elm Street, because there will be a bike lane, and it is not permissible to idle or park in a bike lane, which will be marked. So we're sort of eliminating that possibility. So I think we need to continue to refine thoughts around circulation within the parking lot and parking within the parking lot. And your comment is duly noted as we continue to discuss that. But ultimately, this is going to be the school administration sort of needing to communicate out to parents like what the expectations are around how people are going to park and circulate. But thank you. Go ahead, Carolyn.
Thanks. Yeah, just quick comment on Diana's note about visitor parking. It looks like that I think there's visitor parking in that darker gray area. It's not striped, but that's where it is now, I believe. So obviously those details can be looked at. So I had mentioned some of these comments to Donna previously, that I think some of these driveway entrances need to be tightened up. And so I think it makes sense for us to look at those. I know there's a catch basin on the existing circle that where the bus comes in for the existing loop. So one side probably can't be tightened, but all those details can be looked at. The one thing that, a couple other things. One is, I wonder whether we could save some money and confusion if that 10-foot wide sidewalk in the triangle park is eliminated, because I'm not sure why it's on that side. If we're trying to direct pedestrians to the crosswalks, it seems like you'd enhance and maybe make wider the one along the little leg up to the signal, because that's a direct pedestrian path. And then maybe on the other end where, on the east end where it says proposed bus loop and there's a circle, maybe make a crosswalk across the bus lane there. So it directs people to that crosswalk as well. And then there isn't that confusion about, you know, well, if I'm already on this, I'm invited to the sidewalk in the middle, I'm just going to dart across in the middle. So anyway, something to think about. And then I really think it's important to have a physical controlled mechanism for that bus loop. Otherwise, parents will say, I just have to drop off my kid right here. It's so convenient. And so I think we really need to look at that to make sure that the bus loop is really just for buses. And then on that same note, it's interesting about needing to keep it for emergency services, because there's no emergency service access there now. So I just want to balance that. I mean, like, I think it's probably easy enough if we have a fob system or something for buses, the emergency personnel can use that. But clearly the emergency services have access to the school without that drive lane now. So just want to keep that out there for discussion. And that's all. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Carolyn. And yeah, that'll be a comment. That'll be a conversation with public safety around, you know, what they're going to want to see for access. And regarding your comments about the paved path that goes right through the middle of the park, that is something we're looking carefully at. That is parkland, and we want to discourage you know, pavement in the middle of it. And we want to encourage people to be moving in crosswalks where they can be seen and where there is intersection control. So thank you for that. Any other commissioners have any comments on this before I open it up to the public? Okay, Maureen, you're up first. I just need your name and city or town of residence for the record, and ask that you limit your comments to 2 minutes if you could. Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, I think I'm unmuted. My name's
Yeah.
Maureen Brown, and I live on Elm Street, although my driveway is North Elm Street. So I'm just looking for a little clarification around where Elm Street branches off from North Elm, where it appears there's going to be a new crosswalk put in with lights. And is this a traffic light or just a flashing light for when people activate it to cross?
This is a full traffic signal. It will be a full, you know, red light, green light, traffic signal.
Okay, all right. And then it looks like we're on the road where it's a darker gray. That means there's no longer going to be parking available there. Is that correct?
Yes, in front of the parkland, in front of that triangle section directly in front of the school, we are proposing the elimination of those parking spaces in order to allow for a continuous bike lane.
But also going further north on North Elm, there will be no parking on the street there. See where it says match existing sidewalk on both sides of the street?
Yeah, I believe there's a parking restriction currently in place.
No,
there isn't.
That's my driveway, and it's nearly impossible to get out or in when school is starting and stopping, especially because of parents trying to drop off. In fact, my driveway is often blocked. So to me, this looks like there will be no parking allowed until you get probably up to like Murphy Real Estate or somewhere around there.
Yeah, it would be helpful, Maureen, if you could just send your address to the email address in the chat, and
Sure.
I can address your questions more specifically that way.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, thank you. Okay, next is Alex. Go ahead, Alex.
Hi, Alex Bowman, Market Street. I'm a parent, although not of high school age children yet. There are a lot of great changes here, but for Route 9, the design really locks in a car dominant approach. It gives more space and deference to vehicles instead of offering traffic calming and more equitable options for the next generation. Our priority should be focused on making areas around schools and parks safe environments at all times, not just focused on making it efficient for parents to drop off and pick up their kids. Induced demand is real. Bus policy is largely contributing to these peak spikes. Focusing on solving peak traffic sacrifices an opportunity to improve a neighborhood connection between a school and a park. Some key problems I see here in the design are super long 60-foot crosswalks, just marginal improvements to painted bike lanes and buffers in a place where that primarily serves people who cannot drive. We have straight through traffic lanes, which will enable whizzing through above the 35-mile-per-hour limits, whereas now congestion actually causes slowing down. You know, if we don't commit to building great infrastructure for everyone, walkers, wheelchair users, cyclists, transit riders, and drivers alike, people will continue defaulting to the convenience of a car. Other cities have shown that when practical, safe, and comfortable alternatives are available, traffic improves, communities thrive, and people have choices in how they get around. Do we want to prioritize cars through a school zone or invest in safer, healthier, people-centered streets that work for everyone? It is challenging, I agree, but we can do better, and we just have to choose to. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alex. Next is Jackie. Go ahead, Jackie.
Hi, yeah, Jackie Balance here from Bay State Village. And this is my neighborhood. I've been here off and on since the 1970s. And I really like the fact that you're reopening that bus lane in front of the high school. I miss that. But Donna, you just gave a wonderful, clear presentation. Could I ask you to put up the diagram and zoom in on where Milton Street comes into Riverside so we could all look at that together?
Yeah, hold on just a second.
Okay.
We'll get it.
Whoops. Okay. Looking for it. No?
Yeah, just working through some technical difficulties here.
Okay, a picture's worth 1,000 words if we can see it. It's easy. If I have to say it, it's hard. And I might be, well, I've got it here. I can look at it.
Yeah, why don't you keep going just in the interest of time, and
Sure.
we'll work through this here.
At the intersection where Milton Street comes to, now I lost my picture. Where Milton Street comes onto Riverside, that's a very tricky intersection, has been for years. And right now, the way it is on the demonstration, imagine yourself dropping your kid off at say you came from Clement Street Bridge and you came up Milton Street to drop your kid off at school, and then you're ready to go back to Clement Street Bridge, but you're at Milton Street at Riverside, and you're going to make a left turn, and there's all this traffic coming from every direction. I think that's going to be a very dangerous left turn because you're going to have traffic coming off of North Elm off of Elm Street on both directions, coming into Riverside. And the person from Milton might not see somebody coming from Elm right at them. I just think it's a very awkward spot, and maybe Milton Street should just be no left turn there. Might be safer.
Yeah, thanks for those comments, Jackie. That's actually why I really wanted to put a roundabout in here. I think it would have been a great solution, but as I said, it's just not feasible. One of the things that we wanted to be really careful of, we had Fawcett O'Neill actually look at movement restrictions on Milton Street and traffic restrictions on Milton Street. And what we need to be very careful of is the more movement restrictions you make, the more it pushes traffic to places that you might not want traffic pushed to. Your comments are good ones, and we will take a closer look at a potential left turn restriction here. The geometry of this is certainly improved over its current iteration, but you are right that taking a left there may be tricky. So we will take a hard look at that, and I thank you for your comment. Next is Kirsten. Go ahead, Kirsten.
My question was basically the same, similar to Jackie's, but what will the stop sign configuration be at Riverside, Milton, and Elm Street?
Kirsten, can I just have your city and town of residence? Would you mind?
Oh, sorry. Riverside Drive, Florence.
Okay, thank you. So there would be stop signs at Milton and Riverside, and then a stop sign at Riverside and Elm Street. So traffic on Riverside would have the right of way over traffic coming from Milton Street. Does that answer your question, I hope?
Yes. And then the other quick question is, how many feet from where Milton joins to Riverside, how many feet from that juncture to Elm Street?
It's about 50 feet.
Okay, so not too many cars then.
Yeah, the reason for that is we have to stay within land owned by the city. So the city actually owns this very small section of land, and we're trying to stay within that footprint. So we can't open this up as wide as we may want to, but that's the explanation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next is David Murphy. Dave, go ahead. Well, if I can unmute you, you can go ahead. Hold on, try that.
There, the magic has happened. I'm unmuted.
All right.
So first of all, I'm delighted that you guys decided to unbury Elm Street in front of the high school. I never understood why they had Brett Jacobus bury it. It's still under there, by the way. They just put a bunch of dirt on top of it, so it's underneath there. And is it, from what I can tell of the plan, parking seems to be blocked on Elm Street up as far as 60 North Elm or North Elm. Is that correct?
Yeah, and that was the comment earlier. So I'll have a more formal, I'm just looking at the rendering and not the actual plan set. So I'll have a more formal response to you via email on that.
I'm wondering, I'm looking at, I had the plan up on another computer that's larger, but that house where the parking would start would be 60 North Elm. And just for reference, I've lived here in this area since 1970 and did attend Northampton High School. So I have a long history with what's been happening in this stretch of road. I missed the beginning part of this because unfortunately I was still working. How far up North Elm Street from the where the cutoff is are you improving sidewalks?
Well, we're actually going to be improving the sidewalk all the way up to Cooley Dickinson. Not as, yeah, I know that we've talked about that over the years, but that's actually not going to be part of this project. That's going to be a separate sidewalk appropriation that council actually just voted. So the entire sidewalk will be redone all the way up to Cooley.
Oh, super. That's great because that's been terrible forever. And as I said, I missed the early part of this. Did you talk about traffic signals?
Yep, so as part of this project, there will be 2 signals, one at Elm and North Elm and one at Elm and Woodlawn. So 2 traffic signals, they'll be coordinated and sort of working together.
Mhm. And are you changing the left turn from Woodlawn onto Elm, or is that still going to be no left turn?
Nope, we will remove that restriction because
Oh.
there'll be a traffic signal there that will
Yeah.
allow for that.
And in reality, people turn left there all the time anyway, so it's probably better that the traffic signal makes that safe. And all of these improvements are in the current city right away, right?
Yeah, they are. That's correct. There's no infringement on parkland.
On what?
On parkland.
Oh, okay.
Or on parkland or private property.
Oh, excellent. We like that part.
Yeah.
All right.
thought you
Well,
would.
thank you. Those are my questions for today. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Dave. Okay, next up is Benjamin. Go ahead, Benjamin.
Thank you. So my name is Benjamin Spencer. I'm on Rust Avenue in Northampton. I would echo everything that Mr. Bowman had mentioned when he spoke as far as, building the world that we want to see, and making the roads safer for all users. And I think this is an extremely important location for prioritizing that type of thinking. And I think we need to really seriously have separated bike lanes on both sides of Route 9 in front of the high school, permanent separated bike lanes. I understand we live in New England and there's inclement weather. There's cities and towns all over New England with separated bike lanes. They prioritize the cleaning of those lanes. It's entirely possible. We want to make it so that people outside of cars can travel safely on these roads. And all you need to do is look at that bike rack in front of the high school on any given day when school is in session. And you will see, I'm not exaggerating, maybe up 50 bikes, maybe more. I'd love to see even more. Maybe there's 100. It's wonderful to see people choosing to get to school on their own power. And so I would say, to put in a separated bike lane that's only separated by paint and not anticipate people parking in that bike lane and then creating an even more dangerous condition than what already exists, I will guarantee you that bike lane is going to be full of cars. You cannot have a bike lane that isn't fully separated in front of the high school. You're going to make it less safe. And that is, I think, has been proven out. So on that stretch on Route 9, in front of the high school, I think we put in separated bike lanes and then we find a way to keep them clean all year round. All right, and thank you.
Okay, thanks. Really appreciate that comment. Next is Julie.
There. Okay, great. Julie Magri, Vernon Street, Northampton. I have a question and a comment. The question is about the signalized intersections at Elm and North Elm and Elm and Woodlawn. What is being planned as far as right turn on red at those 2 intersections? And is consideration being given to restricting right turn on red, given the high pedestrian traffic in beginning and ending school hours?
Yes, absolutely. And this is part of the conversation around exclusive pedestrian phasing versus concurrent pedestrian phasing, where concurrent pedestrian phasing allows traffic movements while pedestrians are moving. So those details are still being worked out because we have to consider pedestrians queuing, we have to consider cars queuing, And then how does that impact the behavior of both of those groups? So your comments are noted around right turn on red restrictions, and those are ordinances that would need to be passed as part of a package for this entire project. So we're still working through those details.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then the comment is about the bus loop, opening up that now unused piece of track, right, to make a bus loop. And I think I heard you say you're going to try to do things to discourage drivers from making use of that bus loop. You're really going to have to do a lot, because human nature being as it is, people are going to use that bus loop. And that sounds unsafe. So I don't think a raised crosswalk is going to be enough to keep drivers out of that bus loop. So thanks.
Yeah, thanks for your comments. And I think this is the conversation that Planning Director Mish and I had, is that we may need some sort of physical barrier there. So we'll have to have discussions around that with the school administration. So thank you. Hillary, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Hillary Gardner, on Meadow Street in Florence, and a parent of a graduate from the class of 24 and former PTO member at the high school. So I just had some questions and comments. I know that near misses with crossing guards at the high school has been an issue. And seeing the addition of like 4 crosswalks now in front of the high school, I'm wondering if the expectation is that there will be multiple points where crossing guards are needed. I think currently they mostly serve just one of those crosswalks. The other issue has been lighting. As you know, there was I believe, a student hit leaving athletics, particularly after the time change in the fall. So, I've noticed dim street lights in certain areas of the town and not around the high school. So I just wanted to really emphasize the importance of good lighting, whether or not that's part of all of this. And I also wanted to emphasize the Milton Street problems, the exiting the parking lot and attempting a left turn on Elm Street off Riverside. It is nearly impossible to see who is coming, and that is a super long crosswalk. If we zoom out on the map, there in front of Greg's Auto Repair. And I believe currently there's a community garden on an island there, which also, I love community gardens. Unfortunately, it creates visibility issues, and the gardeners sometimes use the street. So it looks as if the garden triangle is being eliminated. I'm not sure, but I would think my main concern, having tried to negotiate all these streets for many years, is making that left off Riverside onto Elm. You have to yield to the crosswalk, but then you cannot see the cars coming without encroaching to make a left. Meanwhile, you have the bikers coming down a hill on Elm into what now will be a dedicated bike lane, which is also going to cause a visibility issue. And I just also want to point out that there's usually flooding and pooling of water and paving problems on Elm Street. I guess because of the way the drainage comes off the hill. So those are all, personal experiences that would be great to see the traffic flow eased with Milton and Riverside and Elm. I just don't know. It seems like still a very small, very tight turn.
Well, thank you, Hillary. All excellent points that we will incorporate in the document that we're going to put together. But thank you for those. Those are great observations. All right. Anyone have any more questions? I don't see any more hands. Any commissioners have any comments for us as we continue our work on this? Councilor Jarrett, go ahead.
Hey, thank you. Thanks everyone for showing up. Appreciate the comments. I am curious about the sorry, okay. Curious about the question of seasonal bike lane like bollards or I understand that you tried a more flexible material, and I'm curious if there are removable bollards that could be put into place seasonally in those spacings. So I appreciate that being looked at. I think for me, the biggest question here is the question of speed, and that the danger comes from the question of how fast motor vehicles are traveling when a pedestrian is trying to cross, or a bicyclist. And signalization by itself doesn't slow traffic. There will be, if you get the green light, you're going to go at full speed through there. And people will make mistakes in their movements, whether they're in a motor vehicle or a bicycle, or folks crossing against the light because of the delay of waiting for the full cycle. So I am curious if you could address the question of, how will we, in addition, if we're going to go with the signalized route, how will we slow people down as they approach those signals? I'm curious about the warrants for signalization and how much of that is based on speed. So if we slowed traffic with raised surfaces, similar to like Pleasant Street where the rail trail crosses, there we see constant safe crossings because people go slowly coming up into this raised surface, this rumbly surface, and move slowly while other folks negotiate that crossing, whether it's on foot or on bicycle. And I understand there are maintenance, utility, drainage issues, but traffic signals are a huge portion of the cost. And if we could direct those costs to creating a slower intersection, I'm curious if those warrants and would be different, and if we could improve safety for all users by slowing folks down. So I appreciate that you're going to address a lot of these concerns in your document that you're preparing. I look forward to those answers. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Counselor. And I can just talk a little bit about the flexible bollards that we trialed. We actually, and these would be for the separated bike lanes. So they actually do make a variety of products. We bought one that's considered sort of a top of the line item. And the way they work is you drill into the asphalt. There's an anchor that you attach the flexible bollard to. It sort of screws in and gets set, and then you can remove it. What we find is that everything is fine when you first install it. After it has traffic moving over it and de-icing operations that happen over time. We put some sand in it, we put some salt on it, we hit it a bunch of times. We're sort of simulating conditions that would occur out on Route 9. What we find is that the installation actually crumbles and degrades the roadway surface. So not only did the flexible bollard itself fail, but the securing mechanism into the street actually fails. And then you have created penetration for water, to get in, and it freezes and thaws and freezes and thaws, and then ultimately blows the roadway apart. So anytime you're drilling into a roadway, and this would require, drilling to set the bollards, you're creating places for water penetration. And again, it ended up not being an ideal scenario that we want to do in a newly reconstructed roadway. So, removable bollards are not an avenue that we would pursue, which brings us back to the conversation about, okay, it's a permanent installation. What does that permanent installation look like, and how do we maintain and de-ice it? So that's the flexible bollard piece of this. Regarding the warrants around signalization, and again, I can certainly, put together a more formal response to this. But you know, we're moving a huge volume of traffic, unlike Pleasant Street. We're moving a similar volume on Pleasant Street, but unlike Pleasant Street, we have turning movements coming from side streets. So where we have the raised crosswalks on Pleasant Street, in front of, like, say, the train station parking lot, we do not have the volume of side street traffic there as we do in this Route 9 corridor. So we have to think about facilities for pedestrians and bicycles, but we also have to think about the turning movements that vehicles coming from all approaches are making. And we also have to think about the movement of the buses that are coming in and out of the school. So if we were to create raised surfaces in the middle of Route 9, that would slow traffic in that corridor and provide better visibility for pedestrians, because now they're elevated, but with no stop control, we continue to have a free flow of traffic in all directions, and we are not able to control any sort of turning movements that are coming off of Elm Street, which is a feeder street, and Woodlawn, which is a feeder street, and then the turning movements for the buses coming out of the proposed bus loop. One of the things that our engineering firm cautioned us against is that this bus loop cannot be reopened without intersection control. There has to be a traffic light, because the whole reason that the bus loop was closed when it was closed was because there were so many vehicle conflicts with buses trying to move out of that driveway onto Route 9 in an uncontrolled, you know, in a non-controlled environment. So the one caveat that Fuss and O'Neill did have for us is that you cannot reopen this bus loop without putting in intersection control at Woodlawn. So that's a partial answer to your questions. Hopefully that's helpful.
Thank you. Yes, look forward to talking more about it.
Any other comments from any commissioners or members of the public? Okay, Hillary, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. One point I wanted to make as well, as far as alleviating traffic, is the right for school kids to use public transportation, such as public buses, for free. That would have eliminated my need to visit the high school. The fact that my school kid lives, quote unquote, you know, too close to take the bus or too far. Not to mention that a school bus has a fee associated with it. So I think, to speak to earlier public comments as to really thinking universally as far as alleviating car use in the area, it would be great to also think about universal solutions so that more kids can be on the PVTA buses or whatever is needed, and they don't need to be one kid in one car in the parking lot. So thank you as well for considering that.
Thanks, Hillary. Anyone else have any comments for us on this? So as I mentioned, I think this was an important meeting for us to get feedback. We will continue to work on these plans. We'll continue to work on the signal timing to make sure that we're not creating undesirable queuing for any users of the intersection. And I will be preparing kind of a summary of tonight's meeting in an FAQ document that will be on our website. As the project moves forward, we will be needing further input from this commission on proposed ordinance changes, and we will be requesting appropriation from City Council and also their action on a variety of ordinance changes that are needed. So there will be plenty of more opportunity for public comment on this as we go through this process. Brett, I think I saw your hand up. Did you have a comment for us? Go ahead, Brett.
Sure, thanks. Sorry you can't see me in the dark here. Brett Constantine, North Florence, Northampton. I just want, you're sort of covering it now, but I wanted to ask, when are the other times that we'll be able to comment from the public or from this commission or the pedestrian bicycle subcommittee, et cetera?
Okay, what we'll do is as the project moves, we have several ordinance changes that will be required for stop signs, turning restrictions, parking restrictions, that will have to come to TPC and then ultimately to council. There will also be a conversation at council about a budgetary appropriation to build this. So that will be a further time for conversation. And Carolyn and I can discuss when it might be appropriate to move this back to bike and ped, probably in advance of the package of ordinances that we'll need to bring to council. So we might take that ordinance package, move it to bike and ped first, then TPC, and then ultimately to council. So that would be the sequence of operation. Does that answer? I'll unmute you, Brett. Is that good?
That covers the sequence, but not so much the time frame. And I realize you can't give me like day, week, month, but some sense of that would be helpful. Thank you.
Sure. I think what I mentioned previously in it is kind of the timing on this. It's going to be very, very difficult to coordinate this project to be built when school is not in session. You know, we're probably months away from bidding this. The other thing I should mention is that I will be back to this commission asking for a design exception to the Complete Streets Ordinance because we do not physically have space to put a sidewalk on the side of Elm Street as well as install bike lanes. I would say that this conversation will be continuing within the next 3 to 4 months at both Bike and Ped and at TPC. So it's going to be coming up fast. Okay, anyone else have any comments for us? Any other members of the commission? Okay. Well, I appreciate all the comments again and the input. It's very helpful for us during this design process. So thanks for everyone who commented and gave actually really good feedback and really good questions. So thank you for that. Okay, hearing no more discussion on this, I'll ask if anyone has any new business. And hearing none, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Donna.
Debin, yeah, go ahead.
Just a quick question. I didn't want to interrupt you when you were giving your updates, but at the West Street and Green intersection that you've been working with Smith College on, there's a really degraded sidewalk that is caved in right near that crosswalk. Is that going to be on your fix list?
Yeah, we're taking a look at some spot repairs around the city. We just received a authorization for about $800,000 from City Council to do a bunch of sidewalk repairs in targeted areas, and we can certainly take a look at that and see if it's something we can include.
I realize that won't go very far, but that's one you ought to look at. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it. Okay. Any other comments before I ask for a motion to adjourn? May I have a motion to adjourn?
Debin,
Second.
Okay, Debin makes the motion, Carolyn seconds. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. Beth, could you please call the roll?
Donna,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Carolyn,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
Alex,
Yes.
Deborah,
Yes.
Debin,
Yes.
Diana,
Yes.
Jamie.
Yes.
It's unanimous with 9 again.
Okay, thanks everyone. Happy holidays, and we'll see you next month. Take care.